Kirby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kirby Anderson.
Thank you for joining me today. And as a matter of fact, you might not only want to listen, but for those of you that have access to a computer or smartphone, you might want to watch, because over the next 2 hours, we have lots of guests in studio. So it's a lot of fun to kind of watch the program as well as listen to it. But however you do, we're going to be spending some time in this first hour talking about roaring lambs, a topic that we've addressed before, but it's going to go in a lot of different directions. We're going to talk about some of the ministries that exist there. We're going to talk about loving Israel. We're going to talk about Corrie Ten Boom. And that's just the first hour. The second hour, we're going to be getting into some of these foreign policy issues. Frank Gaffney will be with us, Rich Higgins, Center for Security Policy. So we've just got a lot to cover, and so we might as well get right to it. The first two guests I'm going to introduce have been here many times before. They should be familiar to our listeners to Point of View. Garry Hinder and his brother Jack were the ones that actually began what today we call Roaring Lambs. And Garry, just always great to have you in studio with us.
Thank you. Glad to be here today.
Also, we have with us Donna Skell, and she has been the executive director for many years. Almost every time we've done something on Christian Writers Conference or anything else, Donna's been here. And Donna, always great to have you with us.
Thank you, Kirby. It's good to be here.
I would introduce them, but I'm going to leave a lot of time for the conversation. But we have their bios on the website. And in just a few minutes, we're going to spend a little more time talking with Evelyn Hinds, and you're going to learn about Corrie Ten Boom. You're going to learn about how to love Israel. And so, Evelyn, welcome to Point of View for the first time.
Thank you. It's a real honor to be here.
Anybody that has ever listened to us talk about Roaring Lambs knows, and I'll hold this up for people looking at it, this is the book, Roaring Lambs, that came out by Bob Reiner. And I'd love you for just a few minutes, Garry, talk about how the book began to be a ministry, because this incredible ministry that we talk about pretty frequently here on Point of View is one that I hope other people would find out about and participate with.
Sure. Bob Reiner wrote this book, Roaring Lambs, and I got a copy of it early in the ball game, and I was reading the book, got to the very end, and it says in the last chapter, it says that every Sunday school, every Bible study, every church ought to have a Roaring Lambs committee. So the very next Sunday, at the Bible study that we were having at that time in a hotel, really, and I said to the group, it was really in a country club. It was in Bentry Country Club, and I said to the group there, I said, if any of you are interested in becoming part of Roaring Lambs committee, let me know. And I'd like you to come front so we can talk about it, because I'm going to need some help in putting this together, putting a Roaring Lambs program together, because he challenges you to have a Roaring Lambs committee. Well, two ladies answered, and one of them was Donna.
I remember that story.
Yeah. And Donna was up there with Judy, right? And they said, yeah, we'd like to get involved. So that was the committee. It was the three of us, and we started Roaring from the publisher, and we got permission from Bob's lawyer, and he was still alive at the time, and he said, it's okay by me, and if you just, here's the lawyer's number, and you call the publisher, and if they say okay, go. So we called both those people, they said go, we went go, and so that was the starting of Roaring Lambs, which is now just is covering really the world.
Yes.
But we're definitely covering the southern part of the United States, and we hope to just keep growing and growing and growing. This was 36 years ago.
36 years ago.
36 years ago.
Donna, let me come to you because give us an overview of all this. Most people know Roaring Lambs, if they've listened to this program, to know that every year we bring you in to talk about the Christian Writers Conference, which is wonderful, but there are so many other things. There's a Bible study. There's the Loving Israel that we're going to talk about in just a minute. Of course, we have a Roaring Lambs banquet coming up. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Give us an overview of all the different aspects of Roaring Lambs.
I love the name Roaring Lambs because it says what it is. A lamb is a Christian, and a roaring lamb is a Christian that just can't stay silent about their love for Jesus Christ and the difference he makes in their life. So for me, it's about amplifying your faith, equipping believers to know how to effectively share their faith, and either verbally or in the written word, which started the Christian Writers Conferences about 10 years ago. So it's all about sharing your faith and being bold about who you are in Christ.
Now, one of the things I know that you do every Sunday, Garry, is teach through the Bible.
That's right.
And have you been through it, 4 times now? 5? Yeah, 4
No, 4 times.
4 times, okay.
We're in the fourth trip.
Fourth. And you've been doing that for what, 18 years? Am I right? Yeah.
Well, let's see. We've been doing
16,
that for 18 years.
Yeah, 18.
18 years.
I got it.
That's
got it
right.
right.
Yeah. So we've been doing this for 18 years, and it's taken us about 5 to 6 years every time you go from Genesis all the way to the end of Revelation, and that's what we do. We just go right straight through the Bible. We don't skip a verse. We just keep right on going, and people just keep on coming.
Yeah, kind of like Bible Study Fellowship or
Bible Study Fellowship.
Some of those others, or Walk Through the Bible, or many of those different ones, or precepts. You actually teach through the Word of God. But Donna, coming back to that, you have, of course, Writers Conference, but you also have these luncheons. You have things for women, connections. Right. Talk about that, if you might, for just a minute.
Well, again, if we're all about amplifying your faith, not only do we want to teach people how to do that, but we also want to provide opportunities for them to do that. So we have started various communities. We used to call them chapters or communities, where they will hold a monthly luncheon and somebody would be there to share their personal testimony of what God has meant to them. So we have them now in Las Colinas, Jackson, Mississippi, San Antonio, Texas, and we are growing, and we're looking for people that would like to start a Roaring Lambs community in their part of the world.
We're going to take a break, but when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about this Roaring Lambs Hall of Faith and Hall of Fame, and the opportunity to really begin to focus on some of those individuals. And I might encourage some of you that are listening, you might get something to write with, because one of the things that I wanted you to know about is the 18th Annual Hall of Fame celebration, in which they're going to have Colonel Alan West and Bob Bruning, NFL Cowboys player, that are going to be honored. And we'll maybe come back and talk about some of the other who's who, but certainly we know Colonel Alan West because he sat in that chair. He's also sat in my chair a couple of times here as a guest host, so he's one of the individuals that's going to be honoring, and that's in November. I might mention November 5th. Good to maybe do that just before the election. What do you think?
That's a good idea.
And just as we do for the Christian Writers Conference, we oftentimes say, book your ticket and come in. And we've had people come from as far away as Alaska?
Yeah,
Maine.
all over.
Yeah, so all sorts of things. So this is one event. We're also going to be talking about the Loving Israel Conference. And if this is a conference you'd want to come to, that one is in October. So we're going to be talking about a couple of these events. And most importantly, I encourage you to go to the website, because we have information about all of our guests here today, whether it's Garry Hinder, Donna Skell, or Evelyn Hinds. As a matter of fact, we have Evelyn's video there that I want you to watch. And one of the assignments I'm going to give to you is to watch the video, then click the share button, and then maybe put it on your Facebook page, or maybe you have a blog, or send it to someone. This would be a great way to know about Corrie Ten Boom and to know about her ministry and to see how important that might be. So lots of information on the website, pointofview.net. We'll come back and talk a little bit more about the Roaring Lambs banquet and events, but all anticipation. We'll be right back.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
As I've mentioned in previous commentaries, the Obama administration sent directives to all school districts requiring them to permit transgender students to use bathroom facilities and locker rooms of their choice. The president and his liberal allies in the press are unhappy that nearly half the states are fighting this directive. That is why Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton wrote a column defending what he and 23 other states are doing in challenging this administration. Now, even if you approve of the president's directive, you should at least admit that he's going about it in the wrong way. Ken Paxton reminds us that control over intimate facilities in schools have been left to the states. In Texas, for example, state law says that decisions over who uses what facilities will be made by local school districts. In order to mandate this directive, the Obama administration's had to reinterpret Title IX, which forbids sex discrimination in the schools. Back when it was passed in 1972, everyone knew what the word sex means. It means biological sex and does not mean gender identity. The Obama administration changed the meaning of the word in order to push forward its transgender policy. Ken Paxton points out that Congress does know the difference between sex and gender identity. In fact, it has written laws to address both. Congress recently amended the Violence Against Women Act and the Hate Crimes Act to address both sex discrimination and gender identity discrimination. He has a recommendation for the president. If President Obama is unhappy that gender identity is not in Title IX, then amend the law. Urge Congress to do so. Go on TV and ask the American people to elect representatives to amend Title IX. What he cannot do is take out his pen and rewrite the law. Unfortunately, that is exactly what he's doing. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Take Kerby and the Point of View team with you on the go with the Point of View app. Search for Point of View Radio at the Apple or Google Play stores.
Point of View, Truth Team 360, Alan West.
You know, when I think about the importance of Point of View Radio, it is so essential that we connect with the Christian conservative community on the issues and the topics of the day so that they can really get that information to educate and inform them to make better decisions. You know, I have two daughters, 22 and 18, and one of the things that concerns me is the impact that the culture will have upon them. And if we don't stand up as evangelical Christians, as Christian conservatives, and start to show the other points of view and start to talk about these issues that are critical out there for the building of character, the strengthening of the soul and the spirit against some of the very negative impacts of culture, then we will lose our young people. We will lose future generations. The important thing about Point of View ministry is that it arms you. It equips you to go out and do exactly as God commanded Joshua to do. To be strong and of good courage, for the Lord thy God shall never...
Truth Team 360, we did this last week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, just to remind you that we do encourage your financial support, and for as little as $1 a day, $30 a month, $360 a year, you can be one of those individuals that provides the foundational support for Point of View. And so if you were not maybe able to join us last week or did not call in, don't forget we do have a pledge line number, 800-347-5151. If you appreciate some of the conversation we've had, for example, with Colonel Alan West, or the conversation we're having today with the various representatives of Roaring Lambs, please take the time to visit the website, pointofview.net, and either click on that button that says Truth Team 360 or join us through the pledge line. And we're still taking phone calls and certainly appreciate your financial support. In studio with us, Garry Hinder and Donna Skell and Evelyn Hinds. And Gary, let me come to you for just a minute. One of your honorees on November 5th is Colonel Alan West. The other is Bob Bruning, NFL middle linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys. And over the years, you've actually had a number of people that you've honored in your Hall of Fame. Talk a little bit more about that, if you mind.
Okay, yes. We do have a Hall of Fame banquet every year. And you were one of the people that we put in as a roaring lamb. Mm-hmm. And a roaring lamb is somebody, as Donna said, who lives their lifestyle, lives their Christian lifestyle right where they are. And right now in our Bible study, we're studying Nehemiah. Mm-hmm. And Nehemiah built a fence right there, built a wall, just like Nehemiah built a wall.
Yeah.
And he had the people work right where they are. And it went all around the city of Jerusalem. And people would get up every morning and just go out of their backyard and start working on the wall.
Yeah.
So a roaring lamb is somebody who is doing what they're doing right where they are. It can be right there in a business place. It can be we have teachers in the public schools that are roaring lambs right where they are, and people like Evelyn are people that she's a roaring lamb right where she is. So,
and I was just thinking too, you got Bob Bruning, NFL Cowboys. The first honorees that you had were Tom Landry, and then I remember going to a banquet a couple of years ago where you had Roger Staubach. So you've got kind of a Dallas Cowboy connection here, don't you? At least for some of those honorees. But that first year was not only Roger Staubach, but it was also, Tom Landry was also Bob Reiner, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, so
right.
Again, some great opportunities just to meet these individuals. And what's so fun is not only do the people that are honored come to this banquet, some of the others do. So those of you that like to collect selfies or autographs, it's kind of a who's who in the audience there.
Oh, it really is. It really
that.
is. And we invite you to come from all over the country to our Roaring Lambs banquet. It is a great, great affair. And this year it will be Bob Bruning, and it will be Alan West, and they are two good ones. And we start the banquet at 7 o'clock, and we end at 9 o'clock. If the people are still talking at 9, we're still going to leave. So it's a 7 to 9 program. It's not one that goes on and on.
Yes.
So
it's well run, Donna, and that's because you got Donna next year for sure. It is a well run, well oiled program. And let me just mention, for those of you that are listening, you might say this would be something that would really be a lot of fun. There's music, there's a lot of other things. You get a chance to meet, kind of a who's who. And if you've always wanted to do something like that, November 5th, for people to find out more information, just go to roaringlambs.org. So it's just really exciting, and it has a list of all the honorees, has those that are going to be involved. I'm going to be the MC this year, and so it'll be kind of fun. And so there are a lot of things going on, but I wanted to, for just a few minutes, Evelyn, we have not ignored you, but I wanted to talk about the fact that one of the great ministries that exist at Roaring Lambs is Love Israel, Loving Israel 101. And if you could talk a little bit about this, because there is such a heart that I know everybody around the table has for Israel, but you certainly sort of lead the charge on that, don't you?
Yes. Actually, we were talking about it for a long time, and Garry Hinder really has a heart for loving Israel. And he said to me, I want you to do something because you have the passion for it. And I'm very passionate about Israel. And so I came up with this seminar, Loving Israel 101. And we have one October 8th, which is very soon. And then we have a schedule for 2017. That's be on the website. And I'm at that time, I'm going to add a class on a seminar on the covenants of the Bible and the Feast of Israel. So it will be an expansion. You can come to one or come to both, but you will go away learning some things that you didn't know, that you didn't hear in church.
Well, again, you talk about anti-Semitism, Holocaust education.
Yes.
Again, we have a whole generation of young people that maybe don't know all of the things that you are talking about there at your seminar, and this would be something that we really need to pass on to others, right?
Right. It's very good for young people, but of the people that have come through the seminar, we've had a lot of people who are church-going people that really don't hear that much at their church about loving Israel. And so we go through the Abrahamic covenant, who are the Jews, who are the Christians, and what does the Bible say? So it's an exciting study.
Well, and also I might just mention that we have a link to your new book out, Loving Israel 101, The Jewish People and God's Promises. So if people wanted to maybe get a little bit of a taste for what this conference might be before they book a ticket or they decide to get in a car and drive to the next event, they can actually get a copy of the book, can't they?
That's right. It's available on Amazon.com.
And we have a link right there at pointofview.net. Now, a lot of people, Evelyn, know you because you are Corrie Ten Boom.
Yes.
And again, for our older audience, they know who it is. And earlier this year, as a matter of fact, there was a new movie that came out called Return to the Hiding Place. And we had the producer in here because they wanted to, in a sense, re-educate an entire generation about Corrie Ten Boom. But you actually dress up and people can actually see what that looks like because we have the video there. So this is another way to teach about Israel, about the Jews, and about the Holocaust, right?
That's absolutely right. I started doing that over 20 years ago, and I discovered that I had a particular talent to portray old women. And so I thought, this is great. How could I use that at my church? And I thought, I'll be Corrie Ten Boom, because she had become like a spiritual grandmother to me through her books. So I have a great passion for her. And it was actually the first time I performed at my church. I thought it was the only time I was ever going to perform. And I said some words that I heard Corrie say. She said, when they were starting to hide the Jewish people, her father's friends said, Casper Ten Boom, you will be put in prison for what you are doing. And Father would always answer to them, I am too old for prison life, but for me, it would be an honor to give my life for God's chosen people. And when I delivered those lines, I just started weeping. And I had another mentor who helped me. I say she spoon-fed to me the love of Israel. So it is deep in my heart, this love for Israel. And I find such a joy in it, I want to share it with others.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about the story of Corrie Ten Boom. I know that some of you might know that simply because you're old enough to have gone to The Hiding Place, which was a Billy Graham film. But if you are not familiar, we're going to re-educate you about that again, since we have Evelyn Hinds in here. And if you would like to understand the remarkable transformation from what you look like right this moment to what you look like when you get on stage, that is fascinating to watch there as well. So it's all at our website, pointofview.net. Still have about a half an hour left with our friends from Roaring Lambs. We have a lot more to talk about. They have a testimony workshop. Of course, we've talked about Loving Israel. We've talked about the banquet. And we've just gotten started. Like the old commercial says, and there's more. So there is more, but we'll have to do that after the break. Again, all of the information we're talking about today can be found at our website, pointofview.net, or you can just go directly to roaringlambs.org. We'll take a break, come back with more right after this.
Does point of view make any difference? I think Dr. Eric Walsh would say it does. Dr. Walsh was fired from his job as district health director for the state of Georgia, not because of anything he did or failed to do on the job, but because of sermons he preached in his local church. What does that have to do with point of view? Jeremy Dice of First Liberty is representing Dr. Walsh in his effort to correct this apparent injustice. And Jeremy Dice became an attorney specializing in defending religious liberty greatly because of what he learned listening to Point of View Radio as a child. That is the kind of difference you make when you support the Truth Team, but we can't make that difference without your help. Become a partner today in this important mission of speaking the truth in love. Click on Join the Truth Team at pointofview.net. Choose your giving level, stretch a bit. Please do it today. Pointofview.net. or call 800-347-5151. Pointofview.net and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Continue our conversation. We have in studio with us today with Roaring Lambs, Garry Hinder, as well as Donna Skell and Evelyn Hinds. And if you'd like to join us, 1-800-351-1212. I know especially in the second hour as we get into the war on terror, many of you will have comments or questions. But if you'd like to join us at this particular juncture, you are welcome to do so as well. As we've talked about Corrie Ten Boom, we've talked about Roaring Lambs, we've talked about the banquet and many other issues. But Garry, help us out. You first met Evelyn at one of the Bible studies, didn't you?
Well, that's right. We invited her to come and portray Corrie Ten Boom.
Yes.
And so she was all dressed up. I didn't realize she was going to be all dressed up as Corrie Ten Boom. So I'm up there in the front, and I see this elderly lady sitting in the back. So I go back there to her. I'm sure you remember all that. And I go back there to her, and I said, I'm Garry Hinder. Can I help you? And she said, well, yeah, I'm here to imitate Corrie Ten Boom.
The transformation is so dramatic.
I can see so why dramatic. It really is.
You would say this is not the same person. Yeah.
She really does a great job of transforming and dressing like her and speaking like her. I just don't know how she does that all, but that's good stuff.
Evelyn, that's one of the reasons I put the video up there. One, so people know about you, but number two, to watch the transformation that takes place.
Yeah.
It's as good as anything Hollywood puts together.
Well, thank you very much. It's a real honor. I got started doing this 20 years ago, and Corrie Ten Boom was a Dutch woman who hid the Jewish people during the Second World War and ended up going to a concentration camp. And those are the base facts. And a lot of people know her from the Hiding Place movie. Sure. But she wrote a lot of books. And it was really through her books that I got to be very close with her. And so she really taught me a lot about living the Christian life. And I started reading her books in 1983. And they've really helped me a lot. And also waking me up to how important it is to God that we love Israel. And she tells the story that her grandfather started a prayer group for the Jewish people in 1844. And then that love of the Jewish people was passed down through her family.
Yes.
And it was 100 years later where that family was arrested and sent to prison. And that's where her father did die. He was 84 years old, and like he said, too old for prison life.
Yeah. And the sister died, too, as well. Yeah. And there are some incredible takeaways. First of all, it's an important part of history to learn from. But as people watch the video, and again, my assignment to our listeners is to watch the video and then click that share button, maybe put it somewhere on a Facebook page or a blog or send it to someone. There are a few people that say, as I look at where America is going, we would hope that it never looks like the world that came upon Corrie Ten Boom and her family. But there are some takeaways in that sometimes Christians have to stand for their faith and pay a penalty. And whether it's a penalty of losing your job, and look at what's happened to bakers and photographers and wedding planners and florists, or some that have been fired from their job. We play this piece with Eric Walsh, who lost his job simply because he was preaching about marriage from the pulpit and lost his job in Georgia, or whoever it might be. We've got broadcasters and all sorts of individuals. And, of course, there are persecuted Christians around the country and around the world that really are facing persecution with a capital P. And so in some respects, we can learn some lessons vicariously from Corrie Ten Boom, can't we?
Absolutely. And as you look around the world, anti-Semitism is growing. So it wouldn't be out of place that we could be in a similar situation. And as believers, we need to be standing on the side of Israel.
We have a lot of activists here, and Evelyn, just before we finish talking about the Israel program, Loving Israel 101 would be something that obviously people can come to in Dallas, but I'm wondering if some people would say, could we bring that program to our community, or could we bring Corrie Ten Boom to our community?
Yes.
Is that a possibody? Talk
Absolutely.
about how they would do that.
You can go to my website. It has phone number, and you can email me and call me, and I'd be delighted to bring it. It's important topic, and there are a lot of takeaways for today, and Christians need to be ready for what's ahead of us.
And I think if you had really advertised it, it wouldn't be just something you want to do in the church. Maybe you could get a civic center in your community, wherever that might be, where you could get a number of churches to come together and have something where you could honor Israel and where they could hear from Corrie Ten Boom. Is that something that would be possible for a church to do?
That's a very good idea.
Good idea.
Jewish people will even come to a Holocaust program.
Yes.
They might not come if you go, come hear a preacher preach, but they might hear a Holocaust survivor. I had the privilege of doing this for a group that had a lot of Holocaust survivors in the audience, and it was a great honor to me that these Holocaust survivors sitting on the front row gave me a standing ovation.
I would believe so, yeah.
So it's just an incredible blessing to me to be able to do that, to share another Holocaust story today that people need to hear.
You know, I've been to the Holocaust museums, not only here in Dallas and in Washington, D.C., but also in Israel. And when you go, especially to the one in Israel, you see Oskar Schindler, right?
Yep.
You see Corrie Ten Boom.
Yes.
So, again, this could be a great outreach to the Jewish community. And, Don, I know that's a desire that you've always had as well.
Yes, and I want to say, as a testament to what Evelyn is saying, that, you know, I was born and raised Jewish, and it was the love of Christians for me that got my attention. They loved me before they even knew me. They loved me because I was Jewish, and I could not understand this Christian faith.
Well, again, there is a lot of information. We have it all on the website. Again, a link to Evelyn's website, as well as, of course, to roaringlambs.org. You can find all the links. And again, don't forget Loving Israel 101 happening October 8th. And again, the Roaring Lambs Banquet, which is November 5th. So I just wanted to let you know about some of those events. But just before we take another break, Donna, talk about a few other things that are available to our listeners. And one is a testimony workshop. I've really tried to do what I can, even in my own Sunday school class, to get people to learn how to share their faith. But one of those keys is to really begin to hone your testimony. Talk about what takes place there.
Well, you know, I believe that non-believers don't want to be preached at, and they don't want to be told what Jesus can do for them, but they are willing to listen to a story of what Jesus has done for you. So we take your life and help you look back and create your spiritual timeline so that you can see those places in your life where God was most evident, and then to share the gospel against the backdrop of your life. It's a 3-hour workshop. It's 2 parts. We do the workshop first, and then in 2 weeks we have you come back, and they each get an opportunity to stand up and to practice and share their testimony of what God has done for them. It's incredible. We heard so many great testimonies that we put them together in a book called Stories of Roaring Faith, which is going to be given out complimentary to everybody who comes to our banquet on November 5th. And the stories will just blow you away about how God intersected their lives and did miraculous things for them, helped them overcome addictions, helped them work through some issues, and just how they saw God really show up in their life.
I might hold that up too as well. We've got the new book coming out, Stories of Roaring Faith. And of course, you've edited along with Lisa Worley's been on the program with us, and Belinda McBride. A couple of people endorse it, including myself. And so just lots of great stories that would be of encouragement to individuals as well. So if you've always wondered, how can I really learn to share my faith effectively? How can I, to use your phrase, amplify my faith? That's what really that's all about, right?
Yes, it is. And, you know, most people don't realize what a powerful story they have until they put it together and speak it. And then they are usually overwhelmed when they look back and really see God's hand at work in their life. It's pretty incredible. It's a healing process. It's a encouragement process. And once you have it together, you'll be amazed at the opportunities that will present itself for you to share what you already know.
Well, when we come back, I want to talk about some ways in which you can take these principles and apply it. One of those is Word on Wheels. I want individuals to see what they could do in their own church, some of these conferences and other events. Again, I think it's great that you can make your way to Dallas. Dallas is kind of the center of the country, and we found people are willing to get on an airplane and learn how to be a better writer, speaker, whatever it might be, to learn more about how to love Israel. But also would like to see if we can franchise this a little bit, have some other individuals around the country take some of these ideas and apply those as well, because this is the real need that needs to take place. So that's why we wanted to cover it today on a national radio program. And if you're taking notes, we are going to give you a few more notes to take in just a minute. Don't forget, again, the banquet on November 5th and the Roaring Lambs Loving Israel 101 October 8th. And all of that is, again, on the website pointofview.net. We do have the video for you to watch. We have the book, again, Loving Israel 101, that's available, and a whole bunch of other resources. And so take the time to visit that website and to take that information and apply it to your community so that you can amplify your faith and make a difference and be a roaring lamb. We'll be back with more right after this.
Welcome to the First Liberty Briefing. I'm Jeremy Dice. Drive through most towns in America and you will see evidence of religion on almost every corner of the community. In residential areas, business districts, and even on Main Street, America is filled with houses of worship. Bensalem Township, Pennsylvania is no different. There, the town has dozens of churches, synagogues, and even religious temples, but what they have not had is a mosque. When the leaders of the local Muslim community sought to build their own building, the city gave them the runaround. Their application was subjected to heavy scrutiny. The zoning board required 6 separate hearings on the application, while other applications were summoned only once. City officials even asked for specific information about the mosque's members and where they were from. Finally, the city rejected the application entirely. Imagine if this were your congregation or synagogue. How would you feel about your city council making your congregation go through administrative steps that no one else had to go through? Well, we know how the United States Department of Justice felt. They filed a lawsuit alleging that the city violated the Constitution and laws requiring equal treatment, especially when it comes to zoning. I hope the DOJ wins. Protecting religious liberty for all Americans means tolerating a diverse set of beliefs. When a city targets a mosque for unequal treatment, it threatens the religious liberty of all houses of worship. To learn how First Liberty is protecting religious liberty for all Americans, visit firstliberty.org.
Point of View. Truth Team 360.
I really appreciate your program. I don't get to listen to it every day because I have to work, but it's really a blessing to me and to all of us.
I'm going to listen, and Point of View will talk about it, and then I'll know the truth, so then I'm able to speak more wisely.
Well, because you have your program and Fox News, I don't send them money, but I'm going to double what I'm sending to you guys because thanks to you, you're keeping us all up to speed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it. Not only that, I want to encourage everybody listening to donate, because without our donations, I know that y'all won't be able to stay on the air, and it's just, I don't know where we get this kind of information if it wasn't from y'all.
I'd really first like to say I appreciate Point of View. You've been great and wonderful. A lot of information, and I really appreciate all your work you do.
I'm a relatively new listener to the show, and I really kind of stumbled upon it more than anything. And my comment really is, I think you guys and gals are more right on about the assessment of this country right now than anything I've heard. You know, I go home and I tell my wife, you've got to hear what they're talking about on the show. It's just so right on.
Point of View. Truth Team 360.
Truth Team 360. We encourage you to consider what you might do to support this ministry, and you can do that by going to the website pointofview.net. We also, of course, have all sorts of representatives in studio today talking about roaringlambs.org, and of course, Evelyn Hinds is evelynhinds.com. And if you don't know how to spell all that, the good news is we have all the links right there on the website pointofview.net. Garry Hinder, for just a minute, let's, if we can, talk about one other very important ministry, and that was Word on Wheels. This is something that you have done for some time. Your wife, who's with us today, has done. But it's something almost any church or Christian organization could do. So explain what that is.
Any Christian organization could start this instantly, because these senior citizen homes are looking for people to come in and be volunteers.
Yes.
And so Janet, my wife, and two other ladies, they have a group of people that go into 60 to 70 senior citizen places in this little county here, this little town here of Dallas. I mean, here we are. They go into all these places, and the people can't wait for them to come there each week. You've been there, haven't you, Evelyn?
Yes, it is amazing.
Yeah, they have. And Donna, have you ever gone?
Yes, I have. And some of these seniors don't have any family that visits them, and they love to be loved on. And so I think the WOW volunteers do a great job just loving on these residents.
Well, I know this. For Janet, it's a full-time job. Seriously.
Wow. Yes.
And she works 30, 40, 50 hours a week putting all this together and getting things set up and making sure everything's okay. And because there's a lot to it when you go into these senior homes. So.
Well, and that's why I wanted to have people think about what they might want to do. There may be churches right now and say, well, we've never done this, but we'd like to. But it'd be nice if we could talk to somebody who's got some shoe leather, has actually been walking there, and keep us from making all the mistakes that we would make as rookies, and maybe learn from somebody who could mentor us a little bit.
That's
so
right.
Is that possible if they contact you at
Just let
Roaring
them
Lambs?
contact.
Yeah.
They can call us at 972-380-0747.
And again, we have the link to roaringlambs.org.
0123.
Yeah.
Or 0123.
Yeah.
Good news is we got it on the website.
Yeah.
So as long as you can find your way to pointofview.net or roaringlambs.org, you'll find it. That's all you
right.
certainly need. Evelyn, I was just wondering, you had a chance to meet Corrie Ten Boom, didn't you?
I did not.
Oh,
The first that I knew of her was in at the end of the movie of The Hiding Place, and I saw it in 1983, and that was after that was the year she passed. And I think they were recirculating the movie in the churches.
I see.
In honor of her. But when I met Garry, he told me that he actually got to sit at her feet in the
Mary
60s.
Crowley's house.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So you got to meet her, but Evelyn never did.
That's right.
Although we've got some great video of her over the years. And
yes.
there have been so many great opportunities. And I remember when Corrie Ten Boom met some of the individuals, she was always just loving on them and people like that. And so it was just interesting to see how that's played out. But those of us that have seen her and then see you say you've done a very good job of really capturing not only the kind of the look, but especially the language and the ability to really kind of bring her alive and introduce her to a whole new generation of individuals.
Yeah, that's my aim. My costume is Corrie in the 1950s. And it's enough, but I have pieced together my program from actual audio tapes or her books, things that she actually said. So it's kind of cut and paste so that what you're hearing is Corrie.
Yes. Well, I remember when Corrie Ten Boom met with Johnny Erickson Todd. Of course, Johnny Erickson Todd is a quadriplegic, and Corrie Ten Boom grabbed her by the hand and said, well, in heaven, you and I will dance together. And that's some great
good.
lines that came from her as well.
Good.
We're just about out of time. So, Donna, you're real good at kind of summarizing everything. Of course, there is a Sunday morning Bible study. There is a banquet that takes place November 5th where you're going to be honoring Colonel Alan West and Bob Bruning, NFL middle linebacker. We have the Loving Israel conference, which takes place October 8th. The testimony workshops, which you can actually bring to other communities. Have I left anything out? What do we else need to talk about?
Well, we just want to tell you who are listening that God wants to use you. He can use you just as you are. He can equip you to go in and love on the seniors or learn how to share your faith in a comfortable way, or to write it at the Christian Writers Conference. But the whole thing is that God has equipped you to be a messenger, to be an ambassador for Christ, and to be the sweet aroma of Christ.
Well, Gary, this has been just a great opportunity to get together. I'm looking forward to the banquet, and
It's going
anytime
to be
you
a
and I
great
can
banquet.
hang together again. So thank you for your faithfulness over, what has it been, 36 years? That we
36
figured
years.
out? And you've been teaching the Bible study for like 37
Every
years.
Sunday in a country club or in a hotel. We're in a hotel now every Sunday, and we're spreading that, beginning to
Again, 18th annual Hall of Fame celebration as well. So just a lot of legacy when you talk about Roaring Lambs. And Evelyn, certainly great to have you in studio. Let's talk about this again sometime.
Thank you.
Might also mention her book, Loving Israel 101. And so we have a link to that so you can get that. So here's your responsibility. If you'd like to read a book, well, we have that book. If you would like to watch the video, and I would encourage you to do so, watch it and then pass it on to others. If you'd like to sign up for a testimony workshop, Loving Israel, coming to one of the events, or learning a little bit more, all of it is available at the website pointofview.net. So thank you all for being here today.
Thank you.
glad to be here.
Just before we take a break, let me mention in the second hour, we'll have Frank Gaffney in studio, Rich Higgins in studio. We're going to be talking about how to deal with terrorism. We've gone through a terror weekend, New York, New Jersey, stabbings in Minnesota, and all sorts of other issues that we certainly need to address as well. Going to have a chance to talk with Frank Gaffney, founder and president of the Center for Security Policy, served as an undersecretary under Ronald Reagan in the Defense Department. Rich Higgins, of course, has also served in that capacity under a different administration and is actually now providing some consultation with Donald Trump. So I know you'll want to watch that interview and hear it as well. As you go to the website, you'll find a number of things that we've made available to you, not just the least of which, of course, are all the Roaring Lambs links, but also my commentary today on those bathroom directives. And I quote from quite a bit of comments made by the Attorney General of the state of Texas, Ken Paxton. So if you'd like to read more about that, that is available. We have our Take Action section and the video, Are You Registered to Vote? We'll be talking about that in the future, but interestingly enough, 14% of Americans who think they're registered to vote, that is 1 out of 7, are not registered to vote. That's why I want you to watch that video, pass it on to some others, and make sure that they know if they're registered to vote. And we have a link to help you register to vote if you are not. So we have lots to talk about in this second hour, but we do need to take a break. So visit the website, pointofview.net. We'll be back with more right after this.
This is an incredibly important week for Point of View. We need to build our war chest to get us through the election season. This week, we need you to step up and join the team. Just as a political campaign cannot get its message out without donor support, Point of View must have friends like you as we head into the final leg of this presidential race. Imagine Hillary Clinton in the White House. Think of what justices she would nominate to the Supreme Court. The next president is likely going to shape our highest court for several decades. And Point of View wants to provide a biblical perspective of all of the issues in this year's campaign. But we cannot do it. We simply can't without you. Please step up now as a monthly partner. Click the Join the Truth Team button at pointofview.net and choose your level. Stretch a bit or call 1-800-347-5151. Pointofview.net and 1-800-347-5151. 1-800-347-5151.
Point of View will continue after this.
I just thank God for y'all. I listen to you every day, truly. I wanted to thank y'all for everything you do each day to inform Christian families and our community about the things we can do, and just the way you're so informative. I listen to you daily and love you guys and appreciate you so much.
God bless you, Kerby, for keeping this show so on track and for the decades of wonderful help to this nation that Point of View has been. We're all big fans of your work, and we pray that God will just prosper it.
As a Christian, over the years that I've followed this program, I am constantly challenged to be on guard and to evaluate what's going on. And if for no other reason, to protect the caliber and the truth of your programming, I need to participate and to back your program financially to ensure that the truth stays out there for people to hear, to view, and to be a part of.
This is Point of View Radio.
Hi, this is Kirby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging. Apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View continues right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kirby Anderson.
You might remember yesterday we spent some time talking about the terror weekend that we went through, looking at what happened in Minnesota, looking at what happened in New York and New Jersey, and what could have happened, and how, in some respects, it again calls for a much better strategy and much greater honesty than we certainly have had so far. So then when we found out that we have two individuals in the Dallas area that can come in studio today, how better than this to certainly provide you, again, some very important information that you need to hear. And again, if you are listening, you certainly can, but you also can watch, because we have in studio with us, first of all, individual very familiar to our listeners, Frank Gaffney, founder and president of the Center for Security Policy, individual that served under the Reagan administration. And Frank, it is just great that you sent a quick email and said, hey, we're in town. Can we come on radio? And I said, yes, let's do it.
At 2 o'clock in the morning, no less. So thank you for responding so well.
We did our best to respond to it, so we're going to talk about this. And also Richard Higgins. Rich Higgins has been with us by phone before, and Louis Gohmert has been sitting in. You might remember him also as the guest host for Sean Hannity. That was the first time you ever did radio. Also Vice President of Intelligence and National Security for Red. And Rich, thank you for being with us today as well.
Appreciate the flexibility. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, just great to have you both here. Frank, I'll just go around the round table, but get both of your comments. What can we learn about first an This, I think, illustrates again that we've got to exercise a higher level of vigilance than we've ever had before.
Well, it's vigilance with respect to the folks who are here, for sure. I think, in addition, we ought to arrive at the conclusion that obviously Donald Trump has, that we've got to stop importing more jihadists. We've got plenty, it turns out, whatever the number is. It's more than enough. So my feeling about this is there's a number of lessons to be learned about the people that are already in the country. We'll learn more about these particular individuals, but when you put them into the universe of other jihadists that have already struck us, things like their adherence to this doctrine they call Sharia, which is a way of helping to identify who are clearly potential problems, their involvement with mosques that turn out to be associated with the Muslim Brotherhood in, I think, every case, the networks, the support networks that are in place as a result of those mosques or Islamic societies or cultural centers or front groups of other kinds. And so all of those are insights that we should have learned years ago. But I think there's now not only a necessity for learning those lessons and applying them, but it's absolutely a matter of life and death.
You and Stephen Emerson and others have identified some of the kind of toxic things that are said inside of those mosques, right?
We all have, and I think one of the best studies of this was done by our general counsel, a gentleman by the name of David Yerushalmi. He actually undertook to have undercover investigators go into 100 mosques across the United States, chosen at random, by the way, not specifically looking for problematic ones, but a random survey, to test basically a thesis that he had, which is where you see this program of Sharia rigorously practiced in the mosque, you're likely to find as well evidence of jihadism. And in the end, in this peer-reviewed, statistically, rigorously conducted, on-site investigation informed analysis, they discovered that indeed there was a correlation, that there were some 80 mosques out of the 100 that were Sharia adherent, and in every single one of them, Kerby, you saw jihad promoted.
Might just mention, too, that we always have a link to the Center for Security Policy, and people can actually take a course and learn a little bit more about that, so we'll get into that in just a minute. But let me come to Rich for just a few minutes. First of all, we've posted this article by Jenny Thomas. A former DOD official warns America's on the wrong track to fighting war on terror. And as I mentioned before you came here, I understand that you're also providing at least some advice to the Donald Trump campaign on how to maybe do some course correcting. Explain about some of that, if you might.
Well, I think the first thing that we all have to get comfortable with is that we're trying to move people back to reality-based decision-making, back to truth-based decision-making. And so while Frank is elaborating on what we see happening inside the mosques here, I think it's important to know that a key component of the Donald Trump strategy and the way he looks at this problem incorporates a prioritized list that allows us to actually go about, I'll say, cleansing our thinking and our disrupted analysis.
Yes.
And to put in place a coherent strategy from the inside out, which means we're going to treat our body, the homeland first, and understand that that is the first, America first, and then we're going to develop from that foreign diplomatic and frankly war policies based upon our enemy actions. I think what you see in the Trump campaign is a recognition of the fact that this is an enduring dilemma. Not that we want war in perpetuity, but if we could kill everybody in ISIS today, and the problem of radical Islam isn't gone. The problem of jihad isn't gone. We've been fighting this enemy in some shape or form for the past 1,400 years in the West, and I think there's an acknowledgement of that, although we're not going to beat the drum with it. I think the other thing that's really important is my experience inside the system showed me that the postmodernist indifference to the immutable principles that form the backdrop of the American founding, which are Western, Christian, reason, thought. These are the things that are most under threat right now, and I think there's a recognition inside the campaign that we're fighting for more than just a country here. We're fighting for an idea in a way of life.
It seems to me that, as you said, you could kill every jihadist, but they still have a kind of a toxic view. And Dr. Sebastian Gorka has been on this program talking about we almost need something that's, I guess this shows my age, kind of a Radio Free Europe kind of idea, a Radio America, to really begin to combat some of that, because you can kill them on the battlefield, but there's still those ideas out there that need to be defeated as well, don't they?
Kirby, I think you're right, but I think that Radio Free America needs to be broadcast into America.
Well, I agree with that, true.
You take a 6-year...
I think we're on Radio Free America.
Right. I mean,
I'm not mistaken.
Right. I mean, the unfortunate truth is that the war on terrorism isn't being lost in Iraq and Syria. It's being lost in Washington, D.C.
That's true.
And that's a hard fact for people to accept.
Yeah. I need to take a break. When we come back, though, I want to get into a little bit more, because certainly one of the controversial issues, which is not controversial to me, is the idea of really beginning to understand that you can't vet the people that are coming here. And the last time we had a water leak at our house, what was the first thing I did? I turned off the water supply. I didn't try to keep mopping it up. I recognized that if there's water coming out, turn off the waters. By illustration, if you're not sure that you're not letting more jihadists in, turn off the spigot for just a minute. I know I'm a very simple man, but that's at least the way I think through some of these issues, and maybe it's the kind of common sense we need. We need to take a break. We are privileged to have in studio with us today Frank Gaffney and Rich Higgins, and a little bit later we're going to open up the phones. I know you'll have some comments, and we'll save some time for that as well. We'll be back right after this.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
As I've mentioned in previous commentaries, the Obama administration sent directives to all school districts requiring them to permit transgender students to use bathroom facilities and locker rooms of their choice. The president and his liberal allies in the press are unhappy that nearly half the states are fighting this directive. That is why Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton wrote a column defending what he and 23 other states are doing in challenging this administration. Now, even if you approve of the president's directive, you should at least admit that he's going about it in the wrong way. Ken Paxton reminds us that control over intimate facilities and schools have been left to the states. In Texas, for example, state law says that decisions over who uses what facilities will be made by local school districts. In order to mandate this directive, the Obama administration's had to reinterpret Title IX, which forbids sex discrimination in the schools. Back when it was passed in 1972, everyone knew what the word sex means. It means biological sex and does not mean gender identity. The Obama administration changed the meaning of the word in order to push forward its transgender policy. Ken Paxton points out that Congress does know the difference between sex and gender identity. In fact, it has written laws to address both. Congress recently amended the Violence Against Women Act and the Hate Crimes Act to address both sex discrimination and gender identity discrimination. He has a recommendation for the president. If President Obama is unhappy that gender identity is not in Title IX, then amend the law. Urge Congress to do so. Go on TV and ask the American people to elect representatives to amend Title IX. What he cannot do is take out his pen and rewrite the law. Unfortunately, that is exactly what he's doing. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Take Kerby and the Point of View team with you on the go with the Point of View app. Search for Point of View Radio at the Apple or Google Play stores. Point of View, Truth Team 360, Jim Dobson.
I have been invited to be on just about every talk show, and I appreciate you guys. Marlon was a great friend of mine, and Mary is, and it's just stay engaged and stay tuned. When we call for response, be ready to go to the mat, because I'm telling you, the other side is gearing up. This will be a battle from sea to shining sea, and I beg your listeners to stay engaged.
Point of View, Truth Team 360.
Dr. Jim Dobson talking actually a couple of years ago when he was warning us of what was going to unfold. Of course, you just heard my commentary if you're listening online on transgender and all the other issues, but we're going to focus, as we have in studio with us today, Frank Gaffney and Rich Higgins. We have links to the Center for Security Policy, also some of the material Rich Higgins has written, as well as this great article that came out about him that appeared in July. Former DOD official warns America's on the wrong track to fighting the war on terror. We're on the wrong track. Do you think, Rich, we can turn this around if you have the right president? And I know which one you are actually providing counsel to right now. Are we too far gone, or is there some things that we can and should do? And how do we accomplish that?
Well, I mean, there's always hope. Right? I mean, I think I'm loath to put my trust in man.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm with you on that too.
And I think we need to be mindful of that. I think we're cresting the hill, perhaps. Where, it has been a long, hard slog for guys who've been inside the system. I've been working in national security space my entire adult life for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you could not discuss this stuff. And so the Trump campaign, even if he doesn't win, right, I think he will win, but even if he doesn't win, he has done a great patriotic service to this country. in breaking through the political correct blindfold, muzzle, whatever you want to call it, that have been placed on us. Is it fixable? Yes. It will take time. I think the depth of the subversion, both by the Muslim Brotherhood and their, I'll call them red allies, meaning the cultural Marxists, who are replete in our system, and I know you deal with that here daily on the radio show. We have a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
so I'm managing expectations.
I would think so. Frank, talk about that, because first of all, we want to educate our listeners, and you've done just an outstanding job over the years with the Center for Security Policy. So if somebody says, I've heard about this Sharia stuff, how can I educate myself about this, first of all?
I hope they will, because I agree with everything that Rich has said about the need here. And I think the work that you guys do is of incalculable importance, making information accessible to our countrymen and women, enabling them to become engaged. And that's kind of our mission, as we see it, is to sort of provide content that will enable people like you to inform the men and women who we need in this fight. The easiest way to get access to a repository of free monographs and books and videos and course that you mentioned is through our website, securefreedom.org. There's a list there. You can simply click on the cover of anything that interests you and download the thing as a PDF. You can also buy them, but they're available to you at will for free. And the point of all of them really is, for example, in our Civilization Jihad Reader series, is to talk about what Rich was just getting at, the enemy within. Not just the violent jihadists someplace else, but I think of them as pre-violent jihadists. And this was the subject of the course that we've been discussing. We call it Muslim Brotherhood in America. And you can find it at muslimbrotherhoodinamerica.com or through securefreedom.org. But the point of all of this is really to equip people to both understand what we're dealing with, how this threat manifests itself, and to give practical ideas about what even individuals or groups, for sure, can do to try to counteract it and protect our freedoms. Rich mentioned a number of the things that were prized by our founders, reason and, the relationship with, the Almighty. One of the other central tenets, of course, was liberty.
Yeah.
And that's what's at stake, starting with, interestingly enough, an assault on our freedom of speech.
Tomorrow I'm speaking at Dallas Baptist University. They have me speaking at the chapel, and that's my theme, freedom and liberty and the founders and all those kinds of things. But interesting, it shows up even here as we're talking about terrorism. Both of you talked about the Muslim Brotherhood. Anybody that receives our Outlook magazine knows a couple of months ago, it's probably even been a year ago, we went through and documented the various places we could find where the Muslim Brotherhood was in this administration. It'd be good to refresh people's memory and also, of course, maybe give a prediction on what that would look like if Hillary Clinton's the next president.
Well, Rich has had a lot more experience with these guys firsthand than I, but I will tell you in the analysis that we did in this course, muslimbrotherhoodinamerica.com, we focused on 6 individuals who at the time were prominent in the administration.
And we quoted you regularly in that Outlook magazine.
You did, and I'm very grateful. The most prominent of them is Homa Abedin. Who is, of
we've
course,
heard that name, haven't we?
The right hand of Hillary Clinton. Many people know her better as Mrs. Anthony Weiner, but she is a figure in her own right, notably by virtue of having worked for Hillary Clinton since she was First Lady and Homa came in as an intern. But the scary thing about it, Kerby, as you know, is that Homa Abedin is personally, as well as through 4 different family members, and the family business associated with the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yes.
And having a person with that kind of tie and that kind of, mission, which in the words of the Muslim Brotherhood's explanatory memorandum, and if people want one book, just one short book that they really need to take a look at beyond any others, it is the Muslim Brotherhood's own strategic plan for, as they put it, destroying Western civilization from within, the explanatory memorandum, and again, they can download it for free.
Yes, and you have that there. Rich, educate us a little bit.
A key point of the Muslim Brotherhood, well, first off, Al-Qaeda and ISIS are not going to defeat the United States. The Muslim Brotherhood is going to defeat the United States.
Wow.
Okay. Second thing is, if you look at the series of events that has transpired over the past, frankly, 15 years, I'm fond of saying that during the Bush administration, Muslim Brotherhood or Muslim Brotherhood affiliates were seated at the table. During the Obama administration, they're running the meeting. If Mrs. Clinton isn't a client of the Saudis, I don't know what the definition of client means. I don't know how many tens of millions of dollars you have to receive from somebody before you realize you're doing something for them. But it reaches a point of just incredulity. You have Libya, you have Syria, you have Iraq, you have Egypt, you have strategic decisions, foreign policy decisions being made that would not have been made any different were they, at a Muslim Brotherhood coffee shop in Cairo, and they're coming out of Foggy Bottom, our State Department.
Yes.
As somebody who's watched friends die in this war, friends get injured, I've given a marriage to the war. We've all been in it. The thing I think that strikes me is, we're at that critical inflection point. The enemy, the year 2016 is pivotal for them. They have crossed into a phase that they call total confrontation. It's not by chance. You're starting to see attacks daily now. And we are becoming numb to it. It is only by the grace of God that this guy in New Jersey didn't know what he was doing.
Yes.
If we had 100 Americans dead in New York this past weekend, it would be a very different story. I hope that the callousness of the response to this, and I don't think it's really garnered the political attention it needs, is due to that. But long term, I can't overstate how important it is that we deal with the Brotherhood threat. And I'll just leave it there.
I think so. We need to take a break. When we come back, let me open up the phones. Perhaps you have some comments or questions. 1-800-351-1212. We have some links that I would really encourage you to follow. Simply go to the See More button there, and then just scroll down. And when you go there, you'll see, for example, Frank Gaffney. That takes you to the Center for Security Policy. We also have some of the other links that you can find there to the Muslim Brotherhood. Of course, we have Rich Higgins' link there. Also, the article that you might want to. And then one that we posted just a while ago that we thought would be helpful, Terror Attacks Willful Blindness, and that one comes from Andrew McCarthy. So just a couple of things to find there. And when we come back, I want to maybe talk about how people have been intimidated. We used to say, to see something, say something. In San Bernardino, that didn't seem to work out. And so what's the problem here? And is there a way we can bring some common sense to some of this? So there are just a lot of issues to address. But if you'd like to join the conversation today, as we have in studio with us Frank Gaffney and Richard Higgins, please visit our website, or also you can give us a call, 1-800-351-1212. We have lots of articles for you today. We encourage you to print them out. Maybe pass them on to others, maybe forward them to others, post them on your Facebook page, get a conversation going, and we'll continue that conversation with you. If you'd like to give us a call, 1-800-351-1212. We'll be back right after this.
Former White House policy advisor Gary Bauer.
It's only by listening to things like Point of View that Americans find out what the ultimate agenda is. What we've all got to do is make sure programs like yours and this network continue to thrive, because that's the only way millions of Americans are going to find out the information that they need.
And the way to ensure Point of View Radio thrives is by going online right now or picking up the phone to join Truth Team 360. We bring information, wisdom, and encouragement to help you take action for the good of this community and the nation. Go online now to pointofview.net/team. Pointofview.net/team. Select your giving amount, choose your gift, stand together with people all across the land on Truth Team 360. Pointofview.net/team. Join Truth Team 360 by phone, 1-800-347-5151, or mail that first donation to Point of View, Box 30, Dallas, Texas 75221. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Final half hour. If you'd like to join our conversation, your thoughts about the war on terror and what we need to do, we certainly do encourage your phone calls, or else you can just sit back and take some notes, and I would highly recommend that you visit some of the websites we're mentioning here today. Center for Security Policy and Muslim Brotherhood, we have them all available at the website. We have one of these articles from the Daily Caller, which talks a little bit about some of the interview with Rich Higgins, and we are privileged to have Frank Gaffney and Rich Higgins in studio. Okay, See Something, Say Something, or See Something, Say Nothing. That's a new book out. Talk about this idea, because if nothing else, Frank, we need to once again educate our listeners and the American people that they're, in many cases, the first line of defense against some of this. Talk about that.
No, you're so right. This is a job that is surpassingly hard on a good day. This being having situational awareness, as the folks in the military say, understanding what the threat environment is and countering it before something bad happens. And, you know, we saw a prime example of this, Kerby, of course, in the San Bernardino attack. Neighbors of the shooters watched as Middle Eastern men were coming in the dark of night, bringing boxes into a garage. They thought something was wrong, but they didn't want to be labeled racists and bigots, so they didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And so despite all of these admonitions from the TSA and the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI and others, see something, say something, we've actually been told you mustn't say anything because you might actually be pilloried as an Islamophobe or something else. So increasingly, the public has been reluctant to engage. And this is actually part of a larger agenda that I think is really troubling, to suppress freedom of speech more generally to the extent that it is possibly going to be offensive to Muslims. We had the Obama administration during Hillary Clinton's tenure as Secretary of State actually endorsing a resolution at the United Nations that essentially said every country in the world should adopt prohibitions, criminal prohibitions on speech or other expression that defames Islam. Nominally any religion, but there's only one religion that this actually applies to, as you may have noticed.
Yes.
And the point is that this is a mortal threat, not only to our freedoms more generally, but to our very survival if we succumb to it.
Rich, your thoughts, because again, we recognize that sometimes the first line of defense are individuals that are not involved in any kind of security situation, but might see something, and if they say something, they could tip you off.
Correct. I think we saw, I think we saw a successful example of that this past weekend in New York, where that alert woman did pick up on the pressure cooker sitting there. So kudos to those of you who are out there and remaining vigilant. I think it's really important. So often when we come in and we discuss this stuff, we don't want to live in a state of fear. This is the intended outcome of this enemy. So I don't want it to sound like we're on the air here today peddling fear. The enemy views this war, the Muslim Brotherhood, Surah 860, which is their slogan, against them make ready steeds of war, which is a paraphrase of Surah 860, to strike terror into the hearts of the enemy. And ultimately the objective of jihad is the destruction of your faith. Faith in your God, faith in your country, faith in your fellow citizens. And we need to maintain vigilance and guard our hearts against that as we discuss this topic. One other quick point for you is we saw over a series of events that's probably too detailed to get into today in the conversation, but in 2006, when the Democrats took control of Congress, immediately there was pushback on the fact-based analysis of Islam. In 2008, when Obama came in, it became operationalized, meaning they started pursuing people who were seeking the truth about this specific subject matter, culminating in 2011 in an event called The Purge. The Purge basically told trainers, you will either change your material to comply with what the Muslim Brotherhood is saying is good to go, or we're going to fire you or remove your contract. And so...
and your content.
Correct. And so what I saw today was that the father, allegedly in 2014, reported on Rahami and his affiliations in Pakistan to the FBI, and the FBI showed up. The FBI showing up and not being able to discern where this guy was on the spectrum of jihad is the intended outcome of what happened in 2011. Wow. It's very important that people understand these aren't arbitrary events. And when you understand the operational method that this enemy employs, events make sense.
Kerby, there's one other piece of this that it's worth noting as well. When you see these law enforcement officials, and it's actually not just law enforcement.
Yeah,
it's
and
the
they
Department
excised
of
it all
Homeland
out of the
Security.
manuals, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
When you see what's happened to them, they've actually really been disarmed.
Yes.
It's now become a career-ending offense for such individuals to want to know the kind of information that they're not allowed to be taught anymore, to pursue, even in their own time, this kind of information, help them connect the dots, enable them to do their job effectively. What we've really reduced them to is the group that's charged with cleaning things up after something horrible has happened, rather than preventing it from happening in the first place. That's scandalous. It does not serve the public interest, and we've got to have a course correction. This is one of the reasons why I'm excited about having my friend Rich Higgins advising Donald Trump, and I believe helping him chart a new course that I believe is going to be overwhelmingly preferred by the American people to more of the same.
So they're getting red pill briefings. They're getting manuals that actually say something like radical Muslim. You're laughing because you remember where the excisions took place and the purge took place, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the ferocity with which the bureaucracy and the political leadership will protect their fake reality and drive decisions in that fake reality. And people sense the American people are good. They're good people, and they know something's up. They may not know what, but that is driving, I think, a lot of what you see in this political cycle. And it has become now a national security election. And it's a national security election because on the one hand, you have folks who are internationalist, cultural Marxist, probably Hegelian, indifferent to the American principles. And on the other side, Donald Trump, while he is a faulty human being, as we all are, he is also absolutely 100% red, white, and blue. Yeah. And I think people pick up on that, and that's what you see happening in this election.
Let me go down the ballot for just a minute, because it occurs to me, if we talk about Rahami, for example, even in New York, this happened in a city where the progressive mayor, is that a nice term, actually prevented the monitoring of mosques. So it seems to me that paying attention to, we got 34 U.S. Senate races, of course, 435 races for the House of Representatives. We've got, I think, almost 44 different House and Senate races in the states. I think we need to pay attention not only to what the president thinks, but whether you have a sanctuary city, whether you have a mayor, who you might be electing, how they think about these issues. Right, Frank?
You're so right. And that ultimately is what this comes down to, I think, is do we not only have a choice over more of the same, but is it a choice that will be faithfully implemented if the American people vote for it? If, for example, they give a mandate to Donald Trump to take this country in a different direction with respect specifically to this jihadist threat. I had the privilege, Rich had the privilege, all of us who serve in government at every level have the privilege of taking an oath to protect the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And as our friend Jerry Boykin likes to say, there's no statute of limitations or expiration date on that oath. So we're all in on this. I think the American people expect that of their government at every level. But you're so right. If this election does provide a mandate for a change, it behooves the electorate, all of us as voters, to insist that all of those people down ballot help Donald Trump implement this new policy.
Let's take a break, but when we come back, I also like to talk about some of the other threats out there, and we have a nuclear deal with Iran. What does that mean, and what could that mean to this country? It would be remiss of me if I did not allow Frank Gaffney to talk about an EMP for just at least a minute or two, and some of those kinds of issues. And so we have a lot more to put on the table, and you can sit back and kind of take some of the questions if you would like. You can write down some of the information, but most importantly, as you have noticed here, if you've gone to our website, we have really begun to fill it up here. We have, of course, Frank Gaffney there. We have the link to, of course, the Center for Security Policy.org. Of course, your other links to Muslim Brotherhood, which are all there. We have the link to Rich Higgins' website as well, red/or.inc. I guess a -inc is probably the best way to say that. We have some of these articles, as well as we thought we'd put up a few other things that would be relevant, including one from Andrew McCarthy. So there's a lot for you to read and a lot for you to digest, but most importantly, a lot for you to disseminate to your sphere of influence. So that's your action item for us. We'll take a break, come back with more right after this.
Welcome to the First Liberty Briefing. I'm Jeremy Dice. Drive through most towns in America and you will see evidence of religion on almost every corner of the community. In residential areas, business districts, and even on Main Street, America is filled with houses of worship. Bensalem Township, Pennsylvania is no different. There, the town has dozens of churches, synagogues, and even religious temples, but what they have not had is a mosque. When the leaders of the local Muslim community sought to build their own building, the city gave them the runaround. Their application was subjected to heavy scrutiny. The zoning board required 6 separate hearings on the application, while other applications were summoned only once. City officials even asked for specific information about the mosque's members and where they were from. Finally, the city rejected the application entirely. Imagine if this were your congregation or synagogue. How would you feel about your city council making your congregation go through administrative steps that no one else had to go through? Well, we know how the United States Department of Justice felt. They filed a lawsuit alleging that the city violated the Constitution and laws requiring equal treatment, especially when it comes to zoning. I hope the DOJ wins. Protecting religious liberty for all Americans means tolerating a diverse set of beliefs. When a city targets a mosque for unequal treatment, it threatens the religious liberty of all houses of worship. To learn how First Liberty is protecting religious liberty for all Americans, visit firstliberty.org.
Point of View, Truth Team 360.
I always wanted to give because I thought that Point of View really brings a lot of things in out here in the open that you don't hear anywhere else. But what I like, when I was hearing on there, well, I could count on it being something that you could about check into it and the proof would be there. I didn't have to wonder, well, where did they make that stuff up from? I really think that's great.
I've been listening to you right around 30 years now, before I got married, and now we had kids going to college. And we used to donate regularly. We're going to start doing it again. It's a worthwhile cause. I mean, sometimes you get fed here much more than you will in the churches, and look at how much we give to the churches. We should be supporting it.
But I feel it's so important that we know what's going on, and you folks do a great job of it. And I also had joined, it's the best thing to do. Like somebody said, they do $1 a day, and they don't feel that so much. At the end of the month, they've got $30 to send right off.
Yes, thank you for, first of all, what you do. And I just wanted to say that your program is giving us a voice, and I want to thank you for that.
Point of View. Truth Team 360.
And just a challenge to you to consider what you might do to support this ministry. And if today you are hearing some things you haven't heard before, that might be a reason to visit the website, pointofview.net. Click on that button that says Truth Team 360. Let's, if we can, real quickly, as we have in studio with us today, Frank Gaffney and Rich Higgins, talk about one other challenge, and that is we haven't really talked too much about foreign policy, but one that comes on the radar very quickly is this nuclear deal with Iran. And it is amazing. I have brought on individuals that say they're supporters of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, who nevertheless say this is a really bad idea. So it isn't necessarily just one of those liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat kind of issues. A lot of people wonder, what in the world are we doing, Frank?
Well, that was true when the deal was done. In the intervening year, a month or two, it's become infinitely worse.
Yes.
And I think this is what you're picking up, Kerby. The truth of the matter is, this doesn't make any sense from the American national security point of view, from the point of view of our allies, most especially Israel in the Middle East, the stability of the region, or for that matter, our own region. Because what the Iranians have done, even before they got $150 billion from the Obama administration, it turns out a larger and larger slug of it in cash, which is, of course, ideal for terrorism and other influence and subversive operations. They have been active in Latin America, building bases of support. There's talk about even missile bases. These are people who are on the march. And the tragedy is, as Rich and I have been talking with you about, Islamists of every stripe are feeling at the moment that their time has come, that Allah's, gift of the triumph and governance of the world is about to be realized. And Iran is one of the competitors for the leader of that effort. And we have now done much to empower them to be that at our extreme detriment.
Wow. Rich, any thoughts about this Iranian deal and all the possible complications of that? If you have a nuclear Iran, I'm pretty sure that all the other dominoes fall and all sorts of other countries are going to want to get a nuclear weapon as well. That's a whole different view of the Middle East, isn't it?
I think that what you're seeing is, the only word that comes to mind is outrageous. I know a lot of American soldiers who were killed by the Iranians and their surrogates in Iraq. And I'm talking hundreds, if not thousands. And to pretend that this is just, some form of diplomatic overture is absurd. I'd like to know how much it really is in cash. And given the history of the Democratic Party right now and the pay for play, I'd like to see how much of that cash ends up back in the hands of these guys after they're out of office. I think it's something for us to be mindful of over the next couple of years.
Yes.
Completely changes the game in the Middle East. If Iran gets a bomb, the Saudis will want a bomb. If the Saudis want a bomb, they'll get it from one of two sources, Pakistan or us. And if they get the bomb and the Pakistanis then have their weapons in the Middle East, they have a second strike capability in India, and it will proliferate across Southeast Asia.
Yes,
this is a huge, huge deal.
One other issue that I certainly want to put on the table, we always talk about the EMP, and where are we in that? An electromagnetic pulse, and the fact that it would just fry all over electronics and send us back to the 18th century. What about that?
Well, thank you for keeping this in front of your audience, Kerby. It's so important. I think of this as the single most serious threat we're facing, because it turns out whether it's electromagnetic pulse, which is this intense burst of energy that can, as you say, destroy unprotected electronic devices, transformers and that sort of thing. It also is unfortunately something that people could achieve, the takedown of our electric grid, the most critical of our critical infrastructures, through more prosaic means. It's just this weekend up by a major transformer substation outside of San Jose, California, the Metcalf substation. Someone very nearly took it out with automatic weapons fire. And had they done so, we would never be having that conversation again, because we would have lost power to much of Northern California, possibly for years. So these are the sorts of things that, whether it's the Iranians who know about our vulnerability to EMP and other weapons, whether it's the North Koreans who are testing weapons that some of our experts think may well be optimized for electromagnetic pulse, whether it's the Russians, the Chinese, or the Islamic State for that matter. Anyone who is intent on destroying Western civilization understands, I think, that the vulnerability of that electric grid is a mortal peril to our country. We've made some headway, I'm happy to say, including here in Texas, getting state legislators, getting the governor, getting federal legislators to appreciate that Texas could be the first state in the union, should be the first state in the union to protect its grid because it has its own. And if it does, I'm confident every other state in the union will do so. But we've got to get on with this because it is such a, the lawyers use the term attractive nuisance.
Attractive nuisance. Where can they go for some information on that on the website?
We have a great site called securethegrid.com.
Right, Secure the Grid. Okay, and I didn't put that link up. Maybe we can get it up there later, but that is, again, Secure the Grid. Just about out of time, but Rich, I really appreciate you coming in studio, and good to meet you because we've had you by phone, but it's great to have you in studio, and looking forward to the next opportunity. And Frank, always good friend of the ministry, so thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for ministering.
We're just about out of time. Let me just mention some of the resources that we have. First of all, our guests in the first hour and in the second hour, we have links to every one of those websites. So go to pointofview.net. As you go there, we have a video for you to watch, which we encourage you to share. We have some of those articles, and we have the share button there. So your assignment really is to take these ideas and pass them on. Put it on your Facebook page. If you have a blog, put it there. Send it to someone. Print it out. Hand it out to people that you might know. And that's all available at the website pointofview.net. My Viewpoints commentary there is there. Also, our Take Action item on the Obama administration giving up control of the internet is there. And the video we have for you today, Are You Registered? Turns out that 14% of Americans think they're registered and they're not. 1 out of 7. That's why we have that video for you to watch. Maybe pass it on to someone and say, make sure you're registered, and we have a link so that you can make sure that you are, because voting in this election, as you've just heard us say, is really important. Hope you appreciated all the conversation we had here today. We'll certainly spend some time tomorrow getting back into some of those issues. I want to thank Andrew, Catherine, and Shamila for their help behind the scenes. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
The end of the book of Jonah is really strange. God said there were 120,000 people in Nineveh who didn't know their right hand from their left. And yet today in America, many of our major corporations and politicians are fighting a war to permit men to use women's showers and bathrooms. Once you deny God as the measure of all things, you can't even recognize the most basic realities. America is in a battle for its sanity and survival. We need strong voices to tell the truth. We need Point of View. Become a partner in this important mission of speaking truth in love. Please, today is the day. Click the Join the Truth Team button at pointofview.net. Choose your giving level. We've had a great start to this important week, and we need to keep it rolling. Take that step, pointofview.net, or call 800-347-5151. Join the Truth Team today. Pointofview.net. ofview.net or call 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151.
Point of View is produced by Point of View Ministries.
I just thank God for y'all. I listen to you every day, truly. I wanted to thank y'all for everything you do each day to inform Christian families and our community about the things we can do, and just the way you're so informative. I listen to you daily and love you guys and appreciate you so much.
God bless you, Kerby, for keeping this show so on track and for the decades of wonderful help to this nation that Point of View has been. We're all big fans of your work, and we pray that God will just prosper it.
As a Christian, over the years that I've followed this program, I am constantly challenged to be on guard and to evaluate what's going on. And if for no other reason, to protect the caliber and the truth of your programming, I need to participate and to back your program financially to ensure that the truth stays out there for people to hear, to view, and to be a part of.
This is Point of View Radio.